Hello there, adventurers, and welcome to Wally DM. Today we're going to create a Battle Smith Artificer using the new D&D 5th edition Eberron Rise from the Last War. What we're going to do today is we're going to go over a possible backstory that we could use for our character, and then we're going to dig in and create a level 1 Artificer. Then we are going to go through quite a few different levels, taking a look at all of the things that you get as far as an Artificer is concerned and as far as a Battlesmith is concerned. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to look at a Warforged Artificer by the name of Delta 3. Before we get started, just a reminder, if you have not joined our Discord yet, I highly encourage you to do so. Come on over and hang out with me and a lot of cool folks that know a lot about D&D. Also, I have recently updated the tiers and rewards, so please consider supporting us on Patreon. All donations go to support the channel, whether it be through miniatures and terrain for the videos or for future giveaways. Now, before we get started with the backstory, just a quick note that all of the information we're going to go over today can be found on my website, wallydm.com. There's a link in the description below. Now, the race that we're going to look at today is a Warforged. Now, this is a sentient automaton in the world of Eberron, made of inorganic and organic materials, metal, and wood. Now, I would definitely check with my dungeon master before bringing this character to a campaign, but being a dungeon master myself, I don't see where we couldn't use a little bit of imagination and a really good backstory to bring this character to any type of setting, whether that be Ravnica, Faerun, Dragonlance, or any type of homebrew creation. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Warforged Artificer backstory, and this is the backstory that I have made for the character that we'll be going over today. Our first level Battlemaster Artificer is a Warforged by the name of Delta 3. Delta does not remember all of his past, so life begins for him at a point where he was hired by an old gnome named Norbit Knackle. Norbit had a small secluded shop in a rundown part of the city that had a slightly higher crime rate. Norbit's shop was simple, selling standard equipment to city folk and adventurers that would pass through. However, the real magic was in the private shop behind the counter, where he worked on unique gizmos, gadgets, and entwining arcane magic into his incredible inventions. Norbit's initial intention with hiring the sentient Warforged was for protection. Although Delta does not remember his days from the last war, he does have an instinctive ability as a protector, and his skills with a weapon and shield were impressive to say the least. Adding to the arsenal, Delta 3's arm was fitted with a small cannon that could shoot fire bolts up to 120 feet. With Delta at the ready in the Tinkerer's shop, the thugs in the neighborhood steered clear and left Norbit alone. While Delta does not recall his previous life, Norbit told him that he was a heroic Warforged soldier in the last war. However, Delta 3 was more than a soldier, and took a particular interest in the gnome's creations. For decades, the gnome and Warforged work side by side as Norbit passes down his knowledge of smithing, tinkering, and the ability to understand and entwine arcane energy into small, non-magical objects. The two developed a father-son type of relationship, in which Delta to this day still refers to Norbit as father. When not tinkering and fixing things, Delta 3 took a particular interest in painting. Painting provides Delta with a quiet, fulfilling hobby that allows him to express himself. After a few decades, Norbit passes away from old age. He leaves the shop and all of his belongings to Delta 3. Delta, now facing a loneliness he has never known, decides to step out of the shop and seek out new friendships and a sense of purpose for his life. So here we are, a level 1 Artificer. Again, I picked the Warforged race out of the Eberron book and a soldier background. It is also my intention to play this character as a neutral good alignment. He's going to be kind of a defender or a protector, where he would not hesitate to put his own life on the line or put himself in between his allies and friends and danger. I use the standard array for our ability scores. As a Warforged, we get to put a +1 into any ability of our choosing, so I chose Intelligence, giving us a 16 with a +3 modifier, which is very important because an Artificer is intelligence based. And Warforged also get a +2 in Constitution, so I put my 14 in Constitution, bumping that up to 16, giving us a juicy +3 that we get to add to our hit points every time we level up. Now, I did shy away and put my lowest 2 scores in Strength and Dexterity, and that is because at level 2, we will have something that will help us with our weapon attacks, and more on that in a little bit. And then rounding us out, a 13 in Wisdom and a 12 in Charisma, respectively. Now, the skills that our Artificer gains, we get Athletics and Intimidation. Those are both tied to our Soldier background. We get Arcana and Perception. Those are both from being an Artificer. And the one extra one that we get as far as being a Warforged is any one of our choosing, and I chose Investigation because it is intelligence based and because he is a tinkerer and learns how things work. So I feel that Investigation plays into this character's abilities and personality very, very well. Now, for Delta 3's personality, I see him as a very loyal being to his friends and allies and a protector. Almost instinctively would come to the defense and put his own life on the line and put himself between harm's way and a friend or ally or someone that is in need of his assistance. So that is what I did with the soldier background. I picked traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws that kind of play to that personality. And also as a Warforged, they do have a table in there where you can pick a quirk. And the quirk that I picked is that he is fiercely protective of his friends. Now, one of the neat things about Artificers is they are very good using sets of tools. And if you look over to the far left there under other proficiencies, the gaming sets and the vehicles both come from the soldier background. And I have chosen a set of bone dice that Delta 3 has on his person. Perhaps it's something that he looked up and enjoyed playing with his gnome friend. And if he were to go into a tavern or an inn and the DM states that there's some folks playing some games, if there are dice, then he would be able to use his abilities with his gaming set to maybe pick out if someone is cheating or not, or perhaps join the game with a little bit of extra luck on his side. And of course, the toolkit for vehicles is knowing how to operate such vehicles like wagons and things of that nature. The painter's supplies, that's part of the Warforged background. I get to pick an extra skill and an extra tool, and I thought him being a painter, giving something really quiet to do while the rest of the party is finishing up their long rest would be really neat, and so that's what I chose for that. And then as an Artificer, we get 3 different sets of tools. We get Thieves' tools and Tinkerer's tools automatically, and then we get to pick the third one, and I went ahead and picked up Smith's tools. Now, just with an Artificer tinkering, trying to get their little contraptions to put forth this magical effect makes a lot of sense. So Tinkerer's tools are going to be used a ton for this character. And then, of course, you can see we do have 2 languages, Common and Gnomish. I picked Gnomish just to tie into his backstory. So a first level Artificer gets 2 abilities, Magical Tinkering and Spellcasting. And we'll talk about Magical Tinkering in just a minute, but as far as Spellcasting goes, they get 2 cantrips and 2 first level spell slots. Now, what's unique about an Artificer is every time they go up a level, they can swap out one of the cantrips they know with a different cantrip. So that is pretty cool. And as far as their spells are concerned, they don't cast a spell like a normal wizard or a cleric would, but instead they use their tools and their little mechanical devices that are enhanced with arcane energy to produce their spell-like effects. Now, Artificers do have their own spell list, and they can swap out their spells every night after a long rest, and the way that they swap those spells out is they just make little adjustments to their trinkets and their little mechanical devices that will allow them to produce a different magical effect. And let's take a look at a few of the spells here. So for first level, let's say our character chose Featherfall. Now, instead of just casting Featherfall and everybody just floats to the ground, the way that an Artificer would cast Featherfall is perhaps they would press like a button on their chest, and then a parachute pops out the back. And as far as incorporating all the other falling allies, like maybe like a little mechanical bird shoots out from them and attaches a parachute to the backs of their other fallen allies. So now they're all falling down with a parachute attached to their back. Or with the spell Grease, that's a really easy one. We could just have a grease gun, or maybe a device that is attached to their arm or to their fingers. Maybe their fingertip just like it breaks off or is on a hinge, and they release it and just squirt like a grease gun on the floor. Or maybe let's take, for instance, jump. Instead of just being able to jump, they use their tools and their abilities to create like jumping springs in their feet, so they can just just boing, and get the jump ability. So that's pretty much how artificers cast spells. Again, it's through their mechanics and through their tools. They're very, very reliant on their tools. Now for Delta 3, we have a spell save DC at first level of a 13 and a +5 spell attack bonus to use with his Firebolt. And the two cantrips that I have chosen are Firebolt and Guidance. And this will probably be the only time I talk about spells during this video, simply because they can swap them out every time they take a long rest. So there are many, many options. And be sure to leave a comment below what you think the best spells are for the Artificer. So in addition to spellcasting, we also get the ability Magical Tinkering at first level. And that is where we can touch a tiny non-magical object and give it a magical property. Now we can do this to a number of items equal to our intelligence modifier. So at first level, Delta 3 is able to do this to 3 different objects. Now the 4 different abilities are: the first one, object sheds bright light in a 5-foot radius and dim light for an additional 5 feet. Number 2, when tapped, an object emits a recorded message that can be heard within 10 feet. The recording is up to 6 seconds long. The third one, an object continuously emits an odor or sound that can be heard up to 10 feet away. And the fourth one is that a static visual effect can be placed on an object's surface. It can be a picture, it can be words, shapes, lines, things of that nature. So let's take, for instance, perhaps we pick up a rock and we want to throw it and see if how deep a pit is or something like that. So we imbue this with magic, and this rock now shines with a 5-foot radius. Throw it down the well, see how far we can see that. Or perhaps we touch one of our hammers and we give it a smell like a skunk or something like that, and we whip this hammer into probably a crowded room, and then everybody within 10 feet smells that skunk smell from the hammer, and it probably clears the room out a little bit. Or another possibility that we can use with our magical tinkering is perhaps we need to get a message to someone. So perhaps we take a ring and we imbue it with a 6-second long message, and maybe it's somebody that we have to warn that it's a traitor or something. Be like, don't trust Gargamel or something like that. And whenever someone taps this, they can hear that recorded message. Now, all kinds of different things that we could use of magical tinkering. Be sure to leave a comment below on something that you could use one of these abilities for. Now, before moving on, we are only able to do this to a number of items equal to our intelligence modifier. So if we do a 4th item, then the very first one that we gave a magical property loses that property. So if that rock that was glowing and we gave that to someone, and then we end up giving magical properties of 3 other things, then that rock is finally going to become non-magical once again. Okay, so Delta 3 is now a level 2 Artificer and has 19 hit points. And the ability that we get at level 2 is called Infuse Items. Now, infusing an item is giving a non-magical object, is taking a non-magical object and turning it into a magical item. Now, there are only certain objects that we can turn into a magical item, and that is outlined in our Artificer infusions that we get to choose from, and those are on page 61, 62 of the Eberron book. Now, I've went ahead and picked out the few infusions that I'm going to give Delta 3, and if you are taking a look at the Eberron book or trying to choose infusions for your characters, leave a comment below and let me know at level 2 what infusions you are wanting to take for your character. Now, at level 2, as you can see by this chart, we know how to do 4 different infusions, but we can only have 2 infused items at a time. And so if we decide to change our infusion, we have to do that at the end of a long rest. And once we try to infuse a third item, whatever has been infused as a magic item the longest, that magic will fall off. So let's take a look at our character sheet here, and the 4 infusions that I have chosen for Delta 3. The first one is Enhanced Defense, which gives a +1 to armor class, and that is basically enhancing armor or a shield to make it magical. And of course for Delta 3 we are going to make his shield a magical shield, and that +1 to AC, I'm going to go ahead and note it up here because I will probably always have this shield enhance, and that is going to give us an armor class of 18. The next infusion I have chosen I'm probably not going to use right away, but it is Enhanced Weapon, and this gives a weapon a +1 bonus to attack or damage rolls, and it makes it magical, and that will come in really handy at 3rd level. The third infusion that I've chosen, and I do this with a lot of my characters, is I like to have a way to see in the dark, and so Goggles of Night is an infusion, so we just enchant the goggles that we are carrying with us, and I'm sure Delta 3 has plenty of goggles from working in his shop, and he just enhances them with a magic so that he can see 60 feet in the dark with dark vision. And the fourth one is a Wand of Magic Detection, so he can create, touch a non-magical stick or a wand or what have you, and make it a wand where he can detect magic. So those are the 4 that I have chosen. Again, let me know what you chose in the comments below. Okay, so we are now a level 3 Artificer, and all kinds of great stuff happens for the Artificer at level 3. First off, we choose our subclass, and again, we are creating a Battle Smith, so all kinds of cool abilities that we're going to get at this level. And as also you can see here, since we are infusing our shield, I put the armor class at 17/18 in case we use our infusion on something else, just to remind me to tick it down a notch. But for right now, we have a magical shield that gives us an armor class of 18. We now have 27 hit points. Again, we can only infuse 2 items at this level, and we now have 3 hit dice. So let's start on the far right here. We have right tool for the job. So at level 3, we can use our Tinkerer's tool to create any tool that we need. It just takes 1 hour to do so. And that is it for the Artificer part. Now for the Battlesmith, again, all kinds of great abilities. The first one that we're going to get is Tool Proficiency. So at Tool Proficiency, we get to choose an additional tool that we're proficient in. And since we've already chosen Smith Tools, because that's the one that it would give us at this level, we can choose something else. And honestly, I wasn't sure what to do here. I'm sure if I were playing this character in a campaign that the tools I choose would probably reflect our adventures so far, but since we haven't had an adventure so far, I chose Cartographer's Tools because I think that maybe Delta 3 would be very interested in learning how maps work. Now the next ability our Battlesmith gets is called Battle Ready, and what Battle Ready does is it gives us proficiency with martial weapons. So now I have picked up a longsword, and if you remember, we do have the infusion where we can enhance a weapon to make it magical and give it a +1 bonus. And the other part of Battle Ready states that when we attack with a magical weapon, we can use our intelligence modifier instead of strength or dexterity for our attack and damage rolls. And if you remember way back to level 1, I kind of tanked our strength and dexterity with a 10 and an 8. So by infusing our longsword with our infusion, we now have a magical +1 sword that we can use our intelligence modifier on. So that gives us a +6 to attack with our longsword. We've got +2 for our proficiency bonus, +3 for our intelligence, and then the +1 for the magical weapon. And that will give us a 1d8 +4 slashing damage. So very cool ability with the battle ready. Next, let's talk about spells at 3rd level. We actually get an extra 1st level spell slot, so we go from 2 to 3, and I am switching out the cantrip Guidance, and I'm replacing it with Mending, and I'm going to discuss Mending here in just a little bit. But we also get a set spell list that these are going to be spells as a battlesmith that are always prepared and that we always know. And we get these at 3rd, 5th, 9th, 13th, and 17th level. So at 3rd level, we will always know and be able to cast Heroism and Shield using one of our spell slots. And perhaps one of the best animal companions that I've seen for a character at level 3, our Battle Smith Artificer gets a Steel Defender. And that just means that we have used our tinkering ability, and with a combination of our tinker's tools and our smith's tools, we've created a friendly companion that obeys our commands. And there's an entire stat block for our Steel Defender. So let's take a little bit of a look at this thing. This is really cool, and this can be any thing that we perceive. It's a medium size. In the picture, it shows a Mastiff, and I think I'm going to go with that dog. I think that Delta 3 would probably, at this point in his career, be trying to be more human-like and seeing maybe something that references man's best friend and seeing how loyal dogs are to humans, that he would probably want a dog. And so we are going to get him a Mastiff-looking Steel Defender. And again, this is a medium-sized construct that has an armor class of 15. It's got a speed of 40 feet, so this thing's pretty fast. The hit points equal the Steel Defender's con modifier, our intelligence modifier, and 5 times our class level. So at level 3, it will have 20 hit points. And as you can see there, it's got its own stat blocks, skills, immunities, things of that nature. Also, it has dark vision. That's really, really cool. Now, it also has an ability called Might of the Master, which means when our proficiency bonus goes up, that it gets to increase some of its skills, which is pretty cool. It is vigilant, so it can never be surprised. Awesome. And actions. And for our Steel Defender to take an action, it's going to require our character to use a bonus action to give it a command. No big deal. I like that idea. The first action that it can take is a Force Empowered Rend, and this is a melee weapon attack that has a +4 to hit, and it will attack one target that it can see with 1d8 +2 force damage. So that's really neat. The second action it can take, and it can use this 3 times per day, is Repair. And that is where the Steel Defender can restore 2d8 +2 hit points to itself, or another construct, or even an object if it needs to. And then finally, we can have our Steel Defender use a reaction to have a deflect attack. And what that's going to do is it's going to impose disadvantage on an attack roll of any one creature that it can see within 5 feet that is not itself. So if someone is attacking our character, we can have our Steel Defender use its reaction to impose disadvantage on that attacker, so when it attacks us, this thing, our Steel Defender, is getting it in its way and protecting us. This is super exciting. And not only that, looking off to the left, the reason that I took the Mending spell is if the Mending spell is cast on this Steel Defender, it regains 2d6 hit points. If it died within the last hour, we can use our Smith's tools to revive it. And then also after a long rest, if we want to make another one, we can make another one. So this is just, it's got to be probably one of my favorite companions out of all of the character classes. This is absolutely amazing and so flavorful for Delta 3. Now he finally has a companion that goes along with him, and absolutely nuts. I love it. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to level 4. Okay, so Delta is now a level 4 Battle Smith Artificer, and I took the liberty to believe that at level 4, if this character was being in a campaign, that they would have scraped enough gold together to be able to afford a breastplate. So I have put that in his inventory and increased his armor class by 1. So as long as his shield is infused and he now incorporates this breastplate into his frame, he will now have an armor class of 19. Hit points will move to 35, and we will use our ability score improvement to juice up that intelligence to an 18 and give us a +4. Now I've already made the adjustments to our saving throws, to our Arcana and Investigation, as well as our spell save DC, but that also makes our Firebolt a +6 on attack bonus there, and our Longsword, if you remember, is going off of our intelligence modifier as long as it is infused with magic, and that takes it up to an attack bonus of +7 and a 1d8 +5 slashing damage. So the soldier from Delta's past, even though he doesn't remember it, all of these skills are starting to come back. He's now proficient with melee weapons, he's got this longsword, and he is starting to crush opponents with it. I believe that is it for level 4. Let's take a look at level 5. Okay, so Delta is now a level 5 Battle Smith Artificer. He has 43 hit points and now has a +3 proficiency bonus. And I have gone ahead and made the necessary adjustments on the saving throws and his skills. But let's take a look at these attack bonuses. His Firebolt Cannon now has a +7 and can now do 2d10 points of fire damage, and his longsword, he now has a +8, so that is really cool. And also don't forget, when our proficiency bonus goes up, our Steel Defender also gets that bonus to a lot of its skills and abilities. So if you're keeping track of your Steel Defender, make sure that you go through and make those necessary adjustments. And I believe that I've decided that for our animal or steel companion, that we are going to nickname him Bolt. Now, 2 other things that are going to happen to our level 5 Artificer is the first one is we get an extra attack. So not only do we get this +8 attack bonus at level 5, but now we can swing our sword 2 times as long as we take that attack action. So extra attack is really freaking awesome. And let's go down to our spells. Again, we have adjusted our spell save DC with our proficiency bonus, and we now can cast 2nd level spells. So we have 4 1st level spell slots and 2 2nd level spell slots. And we also get that Artificer Battlesmith list. So adding to spells that we will always know are Branding Smite, which adds some radiant damage to an attack, or Warding Bond, which allows us to protect a creature that we touch with additions or bonuses to their armor class. And that just really falls into the type of character that we are wanting to play. So that's it for level 5. Let's take a look at level 6. Okay, so Delta is now a level 6 Battlesmith Artificer, and one of the main things that happens at level 6 is our Artificer gets Tool Expertise. And what Tool Expertise means is when we do a tool check, we add our proficiency bonus. So up until this point, if we were trying to use our thieves tools, we would get a +3 to that. Now with expertise, if we do that same check at level 6, we now get a +6 bonus to that. So that is really good. Seeing all of the different tools that we have, we could really manipulate some situations. So another thing that happens at level 6 is we now are able to infuse 3 items instead of just 2. Up until this point, we've probably been just infusing our shield and our sword unless there was a need for one of our magical weapons like our Goggles of Night or things of that nature. But now we can infuse 3. So finally, it's like loosening the belt a little bit on our abilities. And not only that, but up to this point, we've only known how to perform 4 different infusions. Now we get 6 of them that we know. And at level 6, it actually opens up a few more infusions that we didn't have access to before, because they do have a prerequisite of being 6th level. And I have chosen a couple of those, so let's take a look at them. Now, I did take the ability of being able to forget an infusion and adding a new one to add one of these new 6th level ones, and that is Radiant Weapon. And that's just going to replace the magic weapon that we had before, and it's pretty much the same thing, but with some added abilities. And again, this is one that you need to be 6th level to be able to get. So Radiant Weapon still gives us that +1 bonus and makes our weapon magical. But in addition to that, we can use a bonus action to shed light within 30 feet, and it actually extends to go an additional 30 feet with dim light. Now we also have 4 charges for our Radiant Weapon, and if we are hit by an attack, we can immediately use our reaction to expend a charge, and a light will blind the attacker. Of course, they are allowed a Constitution saving throw against our spell DC, but if they fail that, then they will be blinded until the end of their next turn. And during the dawn or after a long rest, our Radiant Weapon will regain 1d4 charges. Holy smokes, does it take this to the next level. That is super cool. So we still get our magical weapon, but now it comes with this ability that if something attacks and hits us, that we can blind them until the end of their next turn. Oh man, that is too good. I absolutely love that infusion with the Battle Smith. Now the other one that I took is Repulsion Shield. That's hard to say there. Repulsion Shield. And it is the same as the Enhanced Defense. It's going to give us a +1 to armor class, and we're going to enhance our shield. But this also has 4 charges, and after being hit by a melee attack, we can use a reaction to push the attacker 15 feet back from us. No saving throw allowed. Just boom, they hit us. Okay, I'm using a charge from my shield. Bam! Pushes them back 15 feet. Really, really cool. But since we can only replace 1 infusion at a time on a level, I will wait until level 7 to pick a different infusion to replace Enhanced Defense. And then I also chose Lantern of Revealing, and this is just a magic item effect that we can get at level 6, and I figured why not, maybe at this time there are some invisible baddies that we need to deal with, and being able to turn a lantern into a lantern that can see invisible is pretty good in my book. So that is it for level 6. Let's take a look at what happens to our Artificer at level 7. Okay, so here we are at level 7. Our character now has 59 hit points, and if you are keeping track of Bolt, our Steel Companion, it actually has 41 hit points at this point. So very strong duo that we have here. And we talked about infusions last time, and even though with the infusion that we did have, which was the Enhanced Defense, we could have actually enhanced our armor plus our shield and got another +1 to our armor class, but since we only have 3 infusions available, I wanted to keep the one on the shield for that's the repulsion shield, and I wanted to keep the one for the radiant weapon, and I kind of want to use that 3rd slot now that it's available to bounce around with a bunch of different magical item ideas. So whether that's the lantern, the wand, the goggles, the boots, or something else when I advance the level that I think I need, that I can get that. So having that 3rd infusion slot instead of putting it on armor class, I think I would just prefer to play around with it at this point. Now, our level 7 Artificer does get another 2nd level spell slot, so that's cool. But the ability that we get at level 7 is called Flash of Genius. And what this is if we or another creature that we can see within 30 feet has to make an ability check or a saving throw, then our character can use its reaction to add its intelligence modifier to that roll. And if you recall, our intelligence modifier is right now sitting at a +4. So if one of our buddies gets zapped with a spell, we can use our reaction to give them a +4 to whatever they rolled. And we can use this ability a number of times equal to our intelligence modifier, which is 4, and of course it replenishes on a long rest. So the Battle Smith here at level 7 is truly a defender of the party. It puts, he puts himself in harm's way. He tries to protect. He gives out his spells or focus are on defending his friends. And here's another perfect example of just helping out the party or himself if he needs it. And honestly, I am just enjoying all of these abilities that it's getting. So that is it for level 7. Let's take a look at what we're going to do with our Artificer at level 8. So here we are at level 8, and that is another ability score improvement. And again, I'm just going all the way out on this intelligence score. So I am cranking this up, and we are going to now have a 20 intelligence creature. So absolutely amazing. That's going to give us a +5 modifier. I have already added that to our intelligence saving throw, our skills, and our weapon attacks as well as the DC and everything else. So look at that weapon attack. Getting 2 attacks with a +9 longsword on an Artificer. That is absolutely nuts. I love it. So an intelligence of 20, the adjustments have been made. So let's go ahead and take a look at level 9. Hello adventurers, thanks for sticking with me. We are now level 9 Battle Smith Artificer, and everything just keeps getting better and better. First thing, our proficiency bonus is now a +4. I have made the necessary adjustments to our saving throws, our skills, our longsword. We now get a +10 on our attack bonus, and I would even make the adjustments to bolt our steel companion. In addition to that, don't forget that our proficiency modifier, we have tool expertise. So if we're using our thieves tools, our painter supplies, doing stuff with that, we now get a +8 when we use our tools because we have double proficiency. That is absolutely amazing. Also, at 9th level, we finally get 3rd level spell slots. And with that, we have Battlesmith spells, which are Aura of Vitality, which is kind of like a healing spell where we have an aura that can heal within 30 feet a select target, and a Conjure Barrage, which is kind of a damage dealing spell which sends a bunch of ammunition in one direction. So on top of our proficiency bonus increasing and our new spell slots, we also get an ability, if you look above me here, called Arcane Jolt. And Arcane Jolt says when you hit with a magical weapon, or if your steel defender hits a target, we can do one of the following. We can either have that target take an extra 2d6 of force damage, or instead of that, we can have any creature within 30 feet regain 2d6 hit points. And we can only use this once per turn. So even though we have 2 attacks, I can still only use it once. And we can use this a number of times per day equal to our intelligence modifier. And again, that is why I cannot stress enough with this intelligence-based character to get that intelligence up to 20 as fast as you can, and that is what we did. So you can use this ability 5 times per day. Arcane Jolt, I dig it. Fantastic. Let's take a look at level 10. Okay, so let's wrap this up with level 10, and then we'll go over a couple of the higher level abilities before we end this video. So real quick, we now are a level 10 Battlesmith. We have 83 hit points, and the ability that we get is an Artificer ability, not a Battlesmith one in particular, but one that encompasses all of the subclasses, and that is called Magic Item Adept, and that is simply that we can now attune up to 4 magical items, so that's really cool. And a lot of the infusions that we use require attunement and stuff like that. So now we can attune to 4 magical items where most folks can only do 3. And of course, if we craft items, we can spend less time and less gold doing so. We also get to add 2 more infusions to our list, even though we can still only have 4 items infused at a time. And we have a larger magic item chart that we can choose from. So I chose 2 more imbue or infuse magic item ones, and I chose Winged Boots and Helmet of Telepathy. I thought Winged Boots would be a lot of fun. And our final thing is we get a 3rd cantrip. And don't forget with the Artificer that every level that you advance, you can swap out your cantrips when you need to. So if you advance up to 10th level, you want to swap out one of your cantrips, you can do so. And for the purpose of this video, I just added guidance back to our cantrip list. And that's all I have for you. Let's take a look at a few of the high level abilities. So let's take a real quick look at a few of the higher level abilities, and starting with Spell Storing Item. Now this is an Artificer ability that you get at level 11. It doesn't pertain just to the Battlesmith, but all of the Artificers, and that says that we can put within a simple or martial weapon or within a spellcasting focus, we can enchant that so that it contains a first or a second level spell from the Artificer spell list. Now, at first I thought this was like, okay, we can use one of our objects and we can put the spell in there and then we can cast from it. But as I read on, it says, while holding the object, a creature can take an action to produce the spell's effect from it using your spellcasting ability modifier. So the way that I'm reading this is, if we had a fighter in the party and my character wanted to imbue invisibility onto their sword, then they would be able to cast and use the invisibility spell. So definitely correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but this looks like we can create a magic item for one of our party members and give it to them to use. Now, it does have a number of charges that are equal to our intelligence modifier. So in the instance for Delta 3, that would be 10 charges. So that character, again, using the invisibility example, if they use that weapon to cast invisibility up to 10 times, and then that is no longer there. And of course, if we imbue a different object, then that original object, the magic will fall off of it. Really cool, really interesting. Now, there's another Artificer ability at level 14, Magic Item Savant, and that allows us to attune to up to 5 magic items. And we can ignore all class, race, spell, and level requirements on attuning to or using that magical item. So that is really cool. And then at level 18, we can now attune to 6 magical items at once. So I believe the base character class for every other class is 3 magic items at a time, and the Artificer allows us to, at level 18, we can now attune to 6 different magical items. Really cool. And then level 20 is the Soul of Artifice. At 20th level, we can develop a mystical connection with one of our magical items to draw on for protection. So we can either gain, or no, we get both. You can gain a +1 bonus to all saving throws per the magic item you are attuned to. And if you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can use your reaction to end one of your Artificer infusions, causing you to drop to 1 hit point instead of 0. That is the way to end this video. Holy cow, great level 20 ability. Man, this is oh, we do have one more ability. Hold on, let me scroll down here to Battlesmith. Battlesmith level 15, we get Improved Defender. So this is the Battlesmith, not the other Artificer. So at level 15, we get Improved Defender, and that is our Arcane Jolt and our Steel Defender become more powerful. Holy smokes. The extra damage and the dealing of your Arcane Jolt are both increased to 4d6. Nice. Your Steel Defender gains a +2 bonus to armor class, taking it up to level 17. Nice. And whenever your Steel Defender uses its deflect attack, the attacker takes force damage equal to 1d4 plus your intelligence modifier. Very, very nice. So very cool. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the Battlesmith Artificer. Let's close out this video. So that is the Battlesmith Artificer, and I've got to know, you've got to leave a comment below, what do you think of this class? What do you think of the Artificer? And what do you think of the character we built today? I mean, this thing is absolutely nuts. There are so many abilities for the Artificer, and I mean, it's like it just rolls out the red carpet for your brain to come up with all of these different ways to be unique and creative. Just the way that you cast your spells. I mean, you're creating these contraptions. It's absolutely nuts. So leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the Battlesmith Artificer, in particular the infusions. I want to know what you're using and how are you building this character differently. I use the Warforged. What are you using as your Battlesmith? Let me know. I got to find out what you're doing out there. For me, I can't wait to play this character. So comments are awesome. It really means a lot to me. Leave a comment below. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time. On to the next. But that also takes up our Firebolt to a +7. Does it though?